I see the Christ in you. Love is stirring in the air. It's fresh like morning dew. I feel such synergy as I behold the Christ in you. I see the Christ.
Good morning. Are you glad to be alive and awake and enthusiastic on this beautiful morning?
Oh, yes. Awesome. Unity believes in starting everything out with prayer.
And they're just going to hold space with me while we have a short prayer here. I think we have a packed morning, but they're available as I am today if you need some prayer. I'm so proud of you. Okay.
The nugget is called River by James Dilla Freeman. What is a river? That am I. But who can say what rivers are? Am I the water flowing by? Am I the near bank and the far? You chart my depth and breadth and course, and find about me nothing strange. But I say, rivers are more force than fact, are everlasting change. Though your description and your name may fit me now, I shall not stay, even a moment hence the same. I am already on my way. Out of the infinite, a flow of life across infinity, into the infinite, I go, how like a river to the sea.
Today is creative process. I am a divine expression of infinite creative energy. Symbolically, the 7 days of creation described in the Bible correspond to the 7 stages of the creative process. The book of Genesis also shares that humankind was created in the image of God. It stands to reason, then, that I must be an expression of that same divine energy and an essential part of the creative process. As such, I birth divine ideas into tangible expression in this mortal experience. The creative process is sparked by a vague restlessness, a dissatisfaction with what is. Ideas become manifest, and clarity begins to take shape when I surrender to the process and affirm, I am a divine expression of infinite creative energy. And from Genesis 1, verse 27, so God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them.
My thoughts are creating my reality. As I think, so I am.
You must find the place inside you where nothing is impossible. So for an affirmation, perhaps we can say, there is a place within me where nothing is impossible. Like that one more time.
Peace be still. I am enough. Peace be still. I close my eyes and lift my head.
And to bring that energy with us, that knowingness, that sense of our own power. I think we forget our own power so often in this life. We get caught up in this or that, or news, or stuff going on with dear ones, or whatever, and we forget how to center, or we don't allow ourselves to center, or we think we are helping by letting our minds deal with all this stuff. Whereas actually, when we are in that deep centered place, that's how we deal with this stuff. Allowing it, letting God take over. From 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4, the inner person of the heart, the lasting beauty of a gentle and tranquil spirit, which is precious in God's sight. The lasting beauty of a gentle and tranquil spirit. Not rushing around trying to get everything done this year. I've been doing that for the last 24 hours. It didn't feel very tranquil, but now I'm tranquil. Because simply saying the word tranquil, we can have key words that take us into that space, can we not? Tranquil, peace, calm. We hear a lot about going into the silence and taking time to be still, but are we going as deep as we'd like and as often as we might? There's great power in stillness, quietude, the inner space. It's an instant balm, I think, from the busyness of the world, our lives, our overactive thoughts sometimes. What else might you find in the silence to support you in your life journey? What else? Maybe you meditate regularly, maybe you go very deep, but are there other levels that you can get to? Levels of creation, levels of smoothing your path, levels of not healing others, not so much making others do what we think they should do, but seeing others rightly, as Eric Butterworth says. It's not about setting things right. It's about seeing things right. Not making things right, not trying to fix things, but seeing them right and knowing there's God in everything. I'm so grateful to the people I call when anything's troubling me in my life, because they tell me there's God in this. It's not an issue. Whenever my car acts up, I call BJ because she'll tell me it's not an issue. Okay? It's not an issue. It's not an issue. Why are you thinking about it as an issue? It's not an issue. And then those human interactions we have, where it seems like this or that is going right, it's really not an issue. We're all in this space doing God stuff. And so is everybody else, whether we see it or not. So I was playing around in internet space this week on silence and deep silence and who do I want to talk about. And someone kept coming up, Joseph Dispenza. Many of you are familiar with him, author, speaker, does workshops, science and spirituality, deep science. To me, he reminds me of Jane Houston, and Greg Braden too. The human potential, the all we can be of us that we don't always access. This amazing ability we have to create on levels that we don't even know about. What I did know about Joe was that he lived for 8 years as a monk. And he went into a monastery right out of high school, I believe. He was about 18 or so, 19. And he was in the monastery for 8 years, the first year of which he had to practice silence. And then the other years he was out teaching for the monastic order in their schools, connecting more with people. And he talks about silence and how friends would say, well, really? You had to be silent for a year? I mean, how can you do that? Some of you may have visited the monastery in Conyers. Anyone ever been there? Beautiful place to be, and they have a order of silence there too. But how does that work? And are there levels of silence? He said, being silent was not difficult for me. Perhaps the biggest surprise was that once I went into the silence, I was not interested most of the time in speaking. Also, when no one is speaking, it's much easier to be quiet than if some people are speaking and others are not. In our monastery, everyone lived under the rule of silence. The Eastern guru from India, Mayor Baba, went into the silence for the last years of his life. He spoke not at all. He would write things on paper for people if he had to communicate. As for why we wanted to be silent, that relates to the nature of monastic life itself, which is to be apart from the world and have the opportunity for reflection and meditation, activities that are inner and require quiet. It would be absurd to try to follow a contemplative path and also to allow noise into your realm. The two do not go together. And then he talks about an interior and exterior character to the silence. Silence from the inside meant not talking in the first place, but also something deeper. It had to do with quieting the mind. Like you're doing meditation, right? Not being busy inside. Inner silence also carried the idea of refraining from judgment and staying away from thinking about the past and the future. Well, there's a challenge. Can you do 24 hours of not thinking about your past or your future? Wow. Perhaps try it. Okay, maybe for an hour. Okay, maybe for 24 minutes. Okay, how about 24 seconds? I might be able to handle that. My mind's been looping around in the past lately, and it's been really interesting. I'm going like, really? You know, like, really? Why did that come up? And not only just things I worried about, but just fun things. It's like, really? I get to see that face again. That's interesting. Silence on the outside, he says, had to do with keeping away anything that did not foster inner silence. So no radio, TV. He mentioned this was long ago, so there wasn't Wi-Fi and cell phones and all that to worry about. But what was okay? Nature sounds. So it's not white noise, okay? Nature sounds are part of silence. Birds, animals, the wind in the trees. They actually fostered contemplation in the spirit of silence. We were discouraged from making loud noises ourselves, even while they were working, because that would have disturbed the same spirit of silence, even if we were not speaking. What happens when one is silent for a long period? He said first the outer noise goes. Outer noise. And then the inner noise starts to evaporate. Soon quiet reigns everywhere. Time slows to a crawl. Sound becomes a curiosity. Natural sounds, like the flow of water or the rustle or sway of tall grass, become occasions for deeper listening, and they lead to a more profound sense of calm. And he talks about one more thing, actually two in one: the letter of silence and the spirit of silence. So in the letter of silence, he's very actively letting no words come out of your mouth. Like Mary Baba did, writing things down, not speaking at all, practicing it to the letter. The spirit of silence, he said, is staying in that quiet, but when necessary, having words. So even in that first year in the monastery, if you were helping in the kitchen and you had to tell someone something, you would use words, but not unnecessary words. You would keep your words to a minimum. You would use a quiet voice. You would say thank you. If you were practicing this at home and the UPS person comes to the door with a package, you could open the door and say thank you. And you would still be holding that essence of silence. Can you see how that can be incorporated into our lives without committing to it for weeks and years or even a day? Just to have some time for silence. Just to have time to connect with that wonderful Spirit of God that we know is there, but that's so easy to forget about sometimes. People come at us with this opinion and that thing and this idea and that connection or gossip or whatever it is, and we can actually go into silence about it, react to it, kind of turn off that outer and go into the inner, that core. The thing I love from my advisors, it says, hey, you're in this for a purpose. This is all God's stuff. God is in everything. There are no mistakes. People that come in and seem to make our life or our world difficult, hey, maybe they signed on for that job before they ever got here. Said, oh, I'm going to be this difficult person in government or whatever that nobody likes. Wow, that's going to be a challenge. How do we know? How do we know? He says this, I'll finish with this part. I take part of each day now to dwell in silence. You can do this too. You can create your own inner quiet, inner monastery cloister. So if someone asked you and you're drifting off into space, when I was tripping through the past yesterday, I was thinking of a friend of mine that used to look at me and say, where'd you just go? And we'd be sitting in a car together or something. Where did you just go, Bronte? And I'm like, I don't really know. He said, you went somewhere. Let's go there, okay? Let's go there as often as we can. If you have the opportunity to practice an hour of silence sometime during the day, you may want to try it and see how it makes a difference for you. An hour in a day. Don't even have to commit to an hour every day, but an hour when you can in a day. Like the monks of the Middle Ages who lived the vow of silence, you may find the spiritual treasures you had not imagined will be revealed to you, not only in your silent time, but throughout the day. He says, the spiritual center is active in us always. It will communicate with us if we're still enough to hear its gentle voice. Remain in a listening mode during your silent time. That still small voice may not arise in the form of words. It may come in an idea that you've never thought of before, in the image of someone or something, a nudge perhaps to do something. Often the voice will not come to you during the silence, but afterward. Law of Attraction, Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time. Going into the silence and then later in the day, just everything falling into place for you. It may arise in the middle of a conversation you're having with someone. It may appear as a satisfying conclusion to a personal event. It may emerge from something you are reading or listening to. So these are some things you can do if you want to try an hour of silence every day. And if you'd like copies of this, always just let me know after the service or email me and we'll get you a copy. Number 1, if you can read it, schedule your hour of silence at a particular time every day. If you can't do that, that's okay. If you want to do it at 8 in the morning on Monday and 8 at night on Tuesday, that's okay. During that hour, turn off the phone. Not just vibrate, no, turn it off. TV, radio, computer, and all appliances and communication devices. That does not mean turn off your refrigerator, but yes, maybe your laptop or your tablet. And then put down all books and reading material for an hour of silence. Don't read in that hour. Light a candle to be a witness to your hour of silence. We love candles at Unity. Sit quietly and rest, or look at a natural object, or engage in work that does not require you to hear, see, or express words. Gentle housekeeping or gardening are excellent activities of silence, or a long walk in nature. Can anyone suggest anything else you could do that doesn't require words in that time? I was thinking knitting, crocheting, painting. I was thinking, oh, you artists in here, painting. It's a quiet, meditative type of thing. Excellent. Hot bath. Perhaps walking the dog. They always usually engage people and other dogs and barking squirrels and everything else. But okay, I'll take that one off my list. Listen, number 5, to the silence all the time, enjoying this hour-long respite from thinking, reviewing, planning, and imagining. Stay in the present moment. Breathe deeply and mindfully, number 6. Yeah. Bringing in the silence and expelling mental noise. And then at the end, number 7, the end of your hour, let your first word be an expression of gratitude or love. Then put out the candle and go about your business. Consider trying that this week. Just an hour. would say perhaps don't morph that. You know, you can morph the time of day or you switch around the room you're doing it in or outdoors or indoors, but try to do an hour. It doesn't mean being in deep meditation. Like we said, it could be painting, taking a bath, relaxing, looking at nature, be gardening. But it's a time for yourself. I think we don't give ourselves enough gifts, the kind of deep gifts that feed us, that feed our soul, that feed our, what Unity calls the Christ presence, that feed that deeper layer of who we are. Give yourself that gift. And always remember, if you set your intention to do this an hour a day for 7 days and by day 3 you've forgotten, it's okay too. No, have you ever done that? You're like, okay. It's okay. We don't want to chastise ourselves for messing up on that. But consider committing to this. For a day or a week, whatever. Trying it.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as Creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony.